the participants' figures at the top come in, so I'll just wait before we get started, but thank you for joining us. This is always the like exciting bit and bit of nerve-wracking as well.
Hello.
There's a few familiar faces.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I'm really pleased to see that lots of people are joining. Thank you so much. Just give you a few more seconds and I'll crack on. I can start talking about myself to start with, and that's the boring bit out of the way. And then you guys, more people will join by the time we get to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, we still got a few people joining.
Okay, well, what I'll do, I think when we hit the magic 5, then we'll get started, eh? There we go, done. All right, so I'm going to start. First of all, welcome. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Today's chat is going to be hosted by myself. My name is Michelle James. I work for Share My Telly Job, but I'm also a member of the Television Freelancers Task Force. And we're going to be talking with Balihar and Paddy from Bectu today, who will be telling us a little bit more about the Unscripted group that has just started at Bectu, how it works. If you are like me, I knew very little, I still know very little about how unions work and particularly how this might happen. So just kind of to answer some questions really. A little bit, first of all, about the Television Freelancers Task Force. Many of you may be members of our Facebook group. We're a group of industry freelancers. We came together during lockdown to campaign for a common goal of change within the industry. We're made up of members of various different organisations, including Share My Telly Job, who I work for, the TV Mindset, Viva La PD, the BAME TV Freelancers Task Force, among other Facebook groups. And our mission is to campaign for standardised working practices across the industry and improved health and well-being of for all freelancers. I think it's something that's really kind of come to the fore during COVID, that, you know, now is the time to really push for change while we're all on this enforced break. So as I said, we're joined by Paddy Emond, who is an organising official at Bectu, and Balihar Khalsa, who is the Senior Communications Officer. And I think, let me just have a look how we're doing. I think we'll just crack on. This is also being recorded, so hopefully anybody who's not able to join us right now, please do pass it on to your friends if you found it useful, and they can watch it at a more suitable or easy time for them. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, Bali and Paddy. It's really nice. It's been really nice getting to know both of you over the last few weeks. Do you want to start, maybe Paddy, do you want to start, tell me a bit about yourself, your background, how you got involved with Bectu, you know, what you do there, that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, and thanks to Michelle for hosting this today. So yeah, my name's Paddy Emond. I'm an organising official. I work for Bectu. So my job as an organising official is broken down into a lot of different areas. But my main focus is on recruitment, getting people into the union, and then once they're recruited into the union, organising them in such a way that their lives are made demonstrably better in the workplace. That's what it comes down to. I work purely with freelancers, mostly in the creative sectors. I look after the props department branch. I look after the location department branch. I do some work with the sound branch and the production branch. And now I'm also, a big focus of my work is recruiting people who work in unscripted TV into the union. So I've been a trade unionist for probably about 4 years, something like that. I've previously worked for the National Education Union, that's the teachers union. And before that, I worked for, I was a lay rep for Unison when I worked in the public libraries in Merseyside. So that's me in a nutshell, I think. I also do casework as part of my role as an organising official, so helping members on a one-to-one basis. That makes up a large part of my work as well. So yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
Great, thank you very much. And Bali, tell me a little bit about you and how you got involved in Bectu.
Yeah, sure. My background is actually in journalism. So after I did my journalism qualification, I actually worked in some print publications, including the Trade Mag broadcast. And then off the back of that, I actually managed to move into TV. So Channel 4 used to run these schemes, which was for print journalists to move into kind of current affairs dispatches. So I actually moved into TV by getting a place on one of those schemes. And yeah, worked in the industry for a couple of years, moved my way up from researcher to PD. So yeah, I PD'd three or four films. And then I kind of started to think about my career and how that would fit in with kind of other aspirations that I might have outside of my career, my personal life, including kind of having a family. And I just kind of looked at it and in a very black and white objective way and kind of figured out, actually, I don't know if it's going to work for me, and decided to take a sidestep. And so Bectu's parent union is called Prospect, and they advertise for a press officer, and I applied and I got it. And then the lady who used to do the comms role at Bectu, Sharon Elliott, she was leaving the organisation, and I applied for this, and I was appointed. And clearly, you know, I have quite a lot of understanding about the situation that people in the TV industry are kind of dealing with in terms of employment practices and the conditions that everyone has to deal with. So it feels like a very natural fit. And yeah, it's been a very intense period to do the comms work during the pandemic, but genuinely excited to be kind of given the opportunity to kind of be talking to people working in Unscripted today, because that is my background. I totally understand what it is that you guys are dealing with day to day, and all the, you know, precarious things, as well as the highs that you kind of experience when you're making TV programs. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
And I think, you know, I think that for us as a task force, it's been really wonderful getting to know both of you, but especially you know, especially Bally, knowing that you kind of you know where we're coming from, because you've been there and you've lived it. So that's been really great for us. So let's go right back to basics for basic people like me. So, I mean, Paddy, tell me, what is a trade union? How does it work? For people who don't know anything about unions, what's it all about?
Sure, yeah. So I suppose just to take it back to basics, what a trade union is in a sentence is when a group of workers decide to group together in order to pursue ideas about how they can make their workplaces better, more prosperous, safer, more inclusive, all of these things. So Bectu as a trade union organises for people in the creative sector. Different unions might do different sectors of the workforce. So there's a teachers union, there's a miners union, there's a public services union, all different sorts. Unions are democratic. They're run entirely by the membership. They're run by committees mostly. So for instance, Bectu, the highest authority in Bectu is what's called the Sector Executive Committee. Now they make decisions about how the unions run and the kind of things we try and do, we try and achieve. The ultimate aim of a trade union is to get enough membership density, so enough members to join the union in order to bring the employer to the table and negotiate directly with the employer to come to an agreement about how the lives of the workers can be made better. It's as simple as that. We're not for profit. We don't get any money for ourselves. All of the money we get from the members' subscriptions, they go directly back into our campaigns, our negotiations, and to ensure that we can do the best for our members. That's what it comes down to. So that's it in a nutshell. That's more or less what a trade union is. It's a bit more complicated than that, as you can probably imagine, but that's sort of the brass tacks of it.
Well done. Thanks. It's really actually very helpful. Now, Bally, obviously, you know, it's probably fair to say that, you know, Bectu has been viewed by freelancers in Unscripted as, dare I say, old-fashioned, perhaps lacking in the knowledge of the issues that we as people in Unscripted face. I think historically it's been seen as something for crew or for people in film or drama. how are you seeing that this is going to change with this new unscripted group, and why have you decided to do that now?
Okay, yeah, I kind of understand why people in unscripted might see Bectu as old-fashioned, because I think the reality is that, and the two questions are definitely linked, is because not many people who work in unscripted are actually part of the union. And so if people had direct contact with the union, then they might kind of be a bit more informed about how we work and who is kind of making stuff happen behind the scenes. I think there has been kind of an effort in the past to kind of reach out to unscripted people, but and I know for a fact just before Christmas, so we do have already have some existing members who kind of work in unscripted, and I know for a fact before Christmas that there was some work going on, potentially looking at a rate card and things like that, but without the numbers to kind of really truly inform that position, then I think that work potentially was slightly skewed in favour of kind of more scripted, and approaching it from a more scripted point of view. And I think the thing is about Bectu is, like Paddy was just saying, we are one of the most agile unions out there, and that's a really difficult argument to make when a lot of people just don't have contact with unions. But I know for a fact, from coming into this world, from the world that you guys exist in, I wasn't sure what I was entering into, and I've had to learn very quickly about the structures and what unions are like and the culture within them. And a lot of them, yes, I think that kind of attitude and perception that they are old-fashioned is probably true. But Bectu, we represent freelancers. There's no way that we can be old-fashioned if we're representing freelancers. We just wouldn't work. The reality is that you guys have to be on point all the time, because you're only as good as the last job that you did. And that's what you expect from us, and that's how we have to behave as well, and that's the performance that we have to put in for you guys. We are not under any illusion that's the state of play. So I think the reality is that our experience that we have with lots of groups of freelancers, it gives us a bit of an understanding about some of the issues that you guys are tackling, but I can't say that we have the full understanding, because each group of freelancers comes with its own set of challenges and issues that they want to deal with. There are some things that kind of unite them that we can go into a little bit during this call if we want to. But, I think the reality is that as we get more members in from unscripted, will become better informed about kind of the structure of how you work, what the roles are, and what are the pressure points that need to be addressed.
I mean, we talked a little bit about this over the last few weeks as I've sort of trying to understand it all myself, this sort of chicken and egg kind of situation that, people from unscripted don't join Bectu because they can't see that there's anything specifically for unscripted there for them. But there can't be until people from unscripted join Bectu. So it's kind of almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. So if you want Bectu to represent the issues that you are passionate about, there have to be people from unscripted joining Bectu to represent that. Is that kind of right?
I would say so, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the successful branches in our union, the successful divisions in our union are successful because we're able to tap into the knowledge and expertise that our members have. So the more people that join the union, the more sort of data, I suppose, that we've got to inform our campaigns. The members run the show at Bectu. The direction of travel is informed by the members totally. It's a democratic organisation. They run the policy, they make the policies, they run the campaigns. Mine and Bally's job as sort of employees of Bectu, it's to encourage and facilitate what you guys want to do. We're not going to do things that the members don't want to do. There's no point. It's not what we're about. We're a trade union. We want to help our members. We don't have an alternative agenda to that. So yeah, the chicken egg situation is pretty difficult to sort of break. But that's why we're making a concerted effort now in the wake of the coronavirus to say to unscripted people, this is a good home for you in terms of unions. Bally's right. We've got all this expertise when it comes to the success we've had in major motion film, in TV drama, places like that. And we think we've been successful in those areas, and we want to translate that to unscripted. But we know that we're going to have to listen to to you guys, to people who work in the industry, to understand the direction of travel that you guys want to go in?
I've just seen actually a little question here from Andrew. Hi, Andrew, saying, can you explain what unscripted covers and which grades? I think that's a really a key point. So I think from our perspective, unscripted basically is anything without actors. So you're looking at documentary, factual, entertainment, reality, sports, current affairs, basically anything without a dramatic script. As far as I am aware. Is that what you would agree, guys?
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think those are the genres that we're sort of targeting. So what we've done is we've set up what's called a holding branch at the moment for unscripted TV, and we're encouraging people to join through that branch. Once we've got enough people in that branch, we can start looking at how we're going to be structured. And is there a branch there to be formed? Is there a committee there to be formed to represent their interests? At the moment, we're still very early on in the discussions. Nothing's been decided definitively about how the structure is going to work. It's going to be the best of the members, the pre-existing ones and the new ones that join. So it's very early days. The grades that seem to be more wanting of a union structure seem to be ones that are like in production management, in editorial research, things like that. But that's not to say that people who work in like camera or sound or things like that, haven't got a home in the union as well, because they certainly do. And we've got sort of pre-existing branch structures to help them.
Yeah, I'll just jump in there, just because obviously when we're talking about grades, it's slightly different from when it's in unscripted. So we're definitely aware of that. So the notion of grades doesn't necessarily that's not something that people in unscripted actually would be talking about. So we are aware that there are it's more talking about roles and people kind of transitioning from researcher to AP to producer to series producer, edit producer, exec producer. Like, that's the kind of knowledge that I'm able to bring to the conversation. But obviously that knowledge is kind of informed by the members. And I just think, just going back to this kind of notion about exactly how the union works, I think it is a unique relationship that the union as an entity has with its members. We're not commissioners, we're not executive producers that turn around and tell you guys, you need to do this now. That's not how we operate. It is very much about, okay, you've got an idea, we work with you on that idea, you guys have the knowledge to make change happen, and we are there to facilitate that. And I was talking to Paddy about this yesterday, actually, that one of the analogies that I kind of think is quite relevant in this era of campaigning and online discussion which we live in is the notion of signing a petition. So, a petition is a place for people who are interested in making change on a particular subject, and demonstrating that they want that change to happen. So like a union is an amped up version of that. It's kind of people collecting together and saying, we are interested in our careers, in our industry, and in improving it. We love it. And, the union is a structure which is recognised within all the legal structures to actually affect that change. So it's progress and action.
And that kind of feeds into the question I was going to ask you, is sort of, why is a union relevant in 2020? But I think you've actually just sort of answered it, really, that at this time people are becoming more active. It's a really rough time for people in television, and we have this time to kind of start talking about what can be changed and things that we're not happy with, the way our, for example, hiring practices in TV, or the way people are treated or discriminated against. And I think actually now, perhaps more than ever, a union is relevant. It's not outmoded.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Michelle. I think working practice in the UK quite generally is quite cutthroat and quite precarious. But I think that's more so for freelancers. I think what's key in terms of relevancy is that employers aren't willing to engage in negotiations and engage productively with organisations unless they're a trade union. They're the only ones that really get stuff done in terms of fundamental structural changes to workplaces. They'll talk to organisations and associations and things like that, and these organisations do really fantastic work raising awareness. But ultimately, organisations like, for instance, Pact or some production companies, if we want to get negotiated changes, then they're only going to ever talk to a trade union, because we are truly representative of the workers in a way that associations and different organisations sometimes aren't, to be frank.
Or aren't seen to be.
Aren't seen to be potentially, yeah. So I think that's the relevancy of the trade union. They're certainly relevant to employers, which I think is very, very key.
Yeah. I think this is really useful. I wondered if you might be able to, perhaps Bally, maybe you might be able to talk to us about sort of previous campaigns and previous successes, that just to kind of give an example of the kind of works that you guys have been doing that might be kind of applicable to people in unscripted, or might ring true for people in unscripted.
Yeah, I think the campaigns that I think I would like to kind of touch on, that there's quite a few. I just want to just take it back a level just quickly, just to kind of just explain that, like, from a strategic point of view, you know, Bectu is kind of almost like an observer about what's happening in the industry. And so a couple of the campaigns that we've run previously, before coronavirus, so this is the thing, there's pre-coronavirus world and post-coronavirus world.
Isn't it?
And the reality is that, you know, they are interlinked worlds, but the post-coronavirus world is the reason why a union is relevant right now. Because again, from that strategic conversation perspective, there is, you know, huge discussions at a very high level of our democracy, you know, going on right now about what working terms and conditions are going to look like going forward. And that's where union voices are involved. But before coronavirus hit, we did have a couple of campaigns, which again, from that strategic observer level, we were kind of ramping up. So we had one which was run in our London production division by the official Paul Evans, supremely experienced official who looked at the situation, and it's called Eyes Half Shut. And it was about long working hours and the culture that kind of stems from that expectation of you just have to be there all day, and all day isn't 10 hours, is it? It's like, you know, 14, 15, 16 hours, however long it takes to get the job done.
And then you have to drive for 6 hours to get to your next location.
Exactly. And the campaign is incredibly detailed, and, you know, sources lots of information about the impact that has on people's mental health, on their working, on their family lives, you know, not seeing their children. I mean, you know, we all sign up because we love the job. We love getting that kick out of delivering something, which is amazing. And you know, you get good feedback or whatever the feedback's going to be. But, you know, it was asking those questions, which are hugely pertinent, about do we have to make that level of sacrifice to deliver this stuff? And, you know, from Bectu's point of view, no, that's not acceptable. And it was about raising those questions and saying to employers, lots of people are engaged with this. Lots of people are interested in this. This affects people's daily lives. It affects the output of what your crew are making.
And their health and their safety.
Yeah, exactly. And so that campaign, because we have so much, we have a higher number of members in the scripted side of production, TV and film production, it kind of was targeted at that group. But the parallels for unscripted are definitely there. And especially in this post-COVID world, where we know for a fact that TV advertising is dropping massively. And what does that mean? That means that the budgets are going to be under pressure. And where is that budget pressure going to be placed? It's going to be placed on freelancers.
Yeah.
I think crucially what the Eyes Half Shut campaign did is it gave us a platform to be able to go to the productions and say, it's rubbish what you've been saying, that your workers absolutely adore working these really long hours for not fantastic recompense. We could go to them and say, our members know this is a problem and you've got to sort it out. You know, it gave us a proper position at the negotiating table, which I think was really, really useful.
Absolutely. And then more recently, you know, obviously during COVID, obviously Bectu have really been, you know, I follow you on the Twitter, and I have been noticing that you have been really pushing for, you know, furloughing, pushing for freelancers' rights to get access to government funding. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about the stuff that you've been doing, you know, recently that really affects, you know, all of the task force members here?
Yeah, sure. So obviously when the COVID pandemic kicked off, a lot of our members were initially very, very concerned because a lot of them were laid off very, very quickly by production companies. You know, this is major motion film, TV drama primarily that we were dealing with. And so there was immediate financial concern of immediate financial hardship. So when the coronavirus job retention scheme or the furlough scheme came in, we quickly noticed there was a real issue. People that were on short-term PAYE contracts were completely disenfranchised. They weren't getting any support. So what we did, we went straight to the main stakeholders, the decision makers, the legislators, so that's the Treasury, the DCMS, the government more broadly. And we asked them to include these freelancers, these PAYE freelancers, into the coronavirus job retention scheme. And we were successful. And because of our direct intervention, we got, hundreds and, well, I don't know, thousands and thousands of people financial help that they wouldn't have got otherwise. I think what's key to know as well is that the self-employed income support scheme, so the scheme that was created for people who are freelance, like sole traders, that wasn't a given. That wasn't an inevitability. The Treasury were hesitant about getting that up and running in the first place. We were at the forefront of pushing for self-employed people to get into these, to get included in schemes.
And these negotiations are still ongoing, as obviously thousands and thousands of people still have no support, and and that's something that our admins at the task force, like Viva La PD, are doing an awful lot of work, adding to the pressure that Bectu is also putting on to try and get some kind of support for thousands of freelancers that have nothing. So it's great. I think it's another example of kind of common things that we can work together to kind of try and increase pressure in that way. So I'm whizzing through a little bit, Paddy, just because I want to make sure that we have room for all these questions that I can see pinging up at the end. I think we will come to your questions at the end, everybody, so please stick with us. So let's talk about this new unscripted group. Where are we at with it, and why did you decide that that now's the time, and how is it working?
So I think primarily it's been because of the coronavirus. That's what sparked a lot of it. What we've essentially had is two different groups coming together at the same time. So Bali touched on it a little bit earlier. We had a group already working on a rate guidance before the coronavirus pandemic kicked off, and that was for people who work in factual entertainment. So we've had that group working on that. Then at the same time, we had the TV task force doing absolutely fantastic things in a variety of groups, raising awareness. So it seemed to us that there were these two groups, and it made sense to sort of bring them together and look at ways that we could effectively unionise people who work in unscripted, make a more of a concerted effort. I think people have had more time to sit back since coronavirus has hit and go, am I truly satisfied with my work? Am I truly satisfied with my conditions, my pay, and a variety of other things? And it's made them more vocal, and it's been brilliant to see. And there's been so much energy about all of this. And I want to tap into that energy. I want to direct it towards making tangible changes. And I want the union part of that. So that's how I see it. We think that now's the right time. We think the will is there, and I think we can get stuff done.
Yeah. So you've made a sort of holding group, is that correct?
Say that again, sorry, Michelle.
You've made a sort of holding group for unscripted people at the moment, is that right?
Yeah, so at the moment, people are going into what we call a holding branch. So it's a branch where we put people when they join from a certain specific sector of industry. So we've got an unscripted TV holding branch. That's filling up, people are joining. What the plan is eventually is to have a look at the kind of members that are joining, and then look at what sort of branch structure we could potentially do as part of Bectu. As I said earlier, it's all going to be entirely at the behest of the members. They're the ones who decide the structure. They're the ones who decide how it's going to look. I personally think some sort of committee that represents the views of people working in these unscripted genres would be ideal. I think a concerted, specific grouping that looks after their interests would be the best way to get genuine change.
And sort of what's the timeline that we're looking at? When would a committee, be put together? When would we start putting together campaigns? How would that all work? Because it feels like now, like you've got to go now. It feels like like we've got this small window of an opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. So at the moment, we're in sort of the recruitment stage. So we're trying to encourage people to join. I think once we get to the committee elections, I think there's no reason why this can't be done in the next month or so, to be honest. I think that's the sort of the rough time frame we should be looking at. I want as many people to be involved in these discussions and these elections and these committees as possible. So I want to wait a little bit in order to make sure people are in the union, are able to vote, and are able to get involved and heard. ultimately there's no point doing it unless it's truly representative of the needs of the workers. So that's what I'm very keen on doing. But yeah, the time frame doesn't have to be long. If we get a sudden influx of members, there's no reason why we can't move really, really fast on this and get stuff done very, very quickly.
That's great. I mean, sorry, I cut in over you earlier. I was going to ask you. So for example, we become a member of Bectu, of the Unscripted group. How do members sort of influence campaigns? How do they make things happen? How does that all work?
Yeah, so I think basically, the branches they're pretty autonomous. They kind of decide what they want to do. So for example, if, we end up with a critical mass of, like, I don't know, in a dream case scenario, 10,000 people, really big number, but, who are part of the Unscripted branch, then the committee allows them the structure to kind of decide what the priority is, and then Paddy is the official who's in charge of kind of working with them and feeding in their views to the union and kind of what they're doing. And that's when I might get involved, because if it's something, which is a more strategic kind of industry-wide conversation that's going on, that's something that the Unscripted branch is talking about, then, is more power to that particular issue, and then we kind of push that conversation up through the system. So whether that's in conversations with PACT, whether that's in conversations with, Creative Industries Federation, or government DCMS. So there's kind of several layers. You guys might choose to kind of, I don't know, I know some of the groups already in the task force have already done stuff about sticking to your rate, but maybe at a time like this, that's something that branch as well also wants to kind of start campaigning on. And then, maybe that the scripted part of the union is also doing stuff on that. And then we're able to kind of talk about at an upper level, Bectu at an upper level can start talking about freelancers their rates are being diminished. We need to think about how we need to address this right now beyond them holding their rates, so it's kind of lots of levels of conversations going on all the time, and all of the feedback that the members have, it definitely gets fed up through the chain. It's not, you guys aren't just talking in an echo chamber. There is, that's Paddy's role to kind of make sure other people in the union are aware. Philippa, when she's talking to, very senior industry level people and things like that.
Actually, you've mentioned Philippa, and I think it's quite important to sort of talk about her as well, because I think, she's obviously quite new to Bectu. I think she's only been there just over a year and a half, potentially. Mm-hmm. And to me, it seems that she's definitely bringing a kind of a new energy to Bectu. I mean, she's like all over Twitter. She's, she's really kind of shouting loud. Is this something? Is this sort of a whole part of a new direction for Bectu?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I think Bectu's always been committed to improving the working conditions for people in the creative industries, full stop. Okay, yes, we've got a new leader in, and she's bringing a new way of doing things. And, right now, if we weren't, and if Philippa wasn't shouting out loud during coronavirus, where our industries have been disproportionately affected, what are we doing?
What's the point? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, what's the point? So I think, Philippa is very keen to kind of collaborate, talk to people across all of the industry, make sure we have good working relationships with them, make sure that they're hearing what our members are saying, the points of view. And she takes that role incredibly seriously, and she brings her A game to any meeting that she's on. And, it's quite challenging. There's lots and lots of voices out there, but I think she is cutting through. And I think that is because, a new person in a senior position, some people might look at that and be like, oh, do they have the experience? But they also bring energy and a new perspective. And I think that is 100% what you can say about Philippa right now. And she is, really, really committed. And I've made the argument personally to her several times that Unscripted is a place where we need to dedicate some energy and resource. And, what Paddy was saying, that the two things have kind of come together internally, and you guys doing the amazing thing that you've done of bringing your groups together. And I think coronavirus has added that extra, impetus that this needs to happen ASAP. So, yeah.
I mean, I think, I've been very impressed that, she's taken the time to talk to us on a number of occasions. I mean, I think, so just so everybody knows, so the task force admins are all joining Bectu as members, and we kind of we see it as a sort of a strategic alliance, I suppose, our relationship with Bectu, as a way of kind of achieving common goals. You know, there are things that Bectu can do that we as yet can't do, and there are things that we can do as a sort of grassroots movement that you guys can't do. So I think it's a really kind of hopefully a mutually beneficial way of getting things done. I wanted to talk to you guys about, about why you decided to kind of engage with us, and what do you think the kind of relationship is really, and why do you want to work with us?
I mean, in terms of the relationship and how I see it going forward, I see the task force and Bectu as being really, really solid, really, really great allies. I think you guys demonstrated over the last couple of months that you are committed to the betterment of the workers in Unscripted TV, and we've got to applaud you for that. You've really, really brought it to the fore. You've really galvanised a lot of people, and it's been really impressive, really, really impressive stuff. And I'm really excited at the idea that we're going to work together. I think in the future, when things crop up, we're going to be on the same wavelength about a lot of things, I think. And it's really great to hear that a lot of the task forces want to get involved in the union, potentially run for some committee positions potentially. It's really exciting stuff. So yeah, I think fantastic allies is how I would describe us.
And I mean, I think, I think we have a lot of common goals. But I mean, I just want to kind of sort of see to you, what do you think are kind of the main issues that you can see Bectu wanting to work on with the task force for unscripted freelancers?
Yeah, so I mean, I've chatted to a lot of people in unscripted TV over the last couple of months, and it is a sort of a sector, if that's how you want to phrase it, that I'm relatively new to. I think
Wild West, Paddy. Welcome to the Wild
absolutely,
West.
It absolutely is. I think rates is something that we'll always keep an eye on. I think fair rates, especially for people on lower grades, we've got to look at ways of making sure they stay robust, especially in a post-COVID-19 era. I think something that keeps on coming back to me personally is work-life balance or lack thereof. And I think that's probably got to be a primary focus of what we're looking at. Fair hiring practices as well. Is there too much nepotism in unscripted TV? Is there anything the union can do about it? These are issues that we look at, for other branches, other bits of the union. But ultimately, as I keep on harking back to, it's what the members want. It's if the members identify an issue, we'll help them, we'll organise them, we'll say to them, this is how it's worked in the past, this is what's good, this is what's not so good, and then we can work together to try and find solutions.
Yeah, and in the spirit of that, we have a poll. So if you are tuning in, we have actually, this is all magic to me, I don't really know how it works, but there is a poll where you can vote for what issues that you guys think are particularly something that we need to tackle most pressingly. So you can see here, it should have just popped up on your screen. If it hasn't, please do message us in our chat. So the poll is, what issue do you think Bectu and the task force need to tackle most urgently? And your options are a rate card, an introduction of an HR charter, cross-industry guidance for types of employment like PAYE freelancers, limited companies, how they are taxed, how the holiday pay works for that, tackling long hours. Sorry, my dog is trotting around in the background if you hear weird scuffling noises. So tackling long hours, and then increasing diversity and representation. Now, obviously, long hours and diversity and representation would be part of an HR charter, but we decided that it was important to put them separately as well as sort of key things to tackle. So please vote. As a host or a panelist, we can't, but we would be really keen to kind of get your opinion just as a quick straw poll. So please do vote, and we'll be coming back to the results of that poll later on, which is very exciting. So Bali, so say we today, or actually as the group kind of forms and gets bigger, and we decide that, okay, this is something that we really want to focus on, this issue, this is a campaign that we want to go for, and it's something that you've already touched on a little bit. So we'd say, okay, this is something we want to do. How does then Bectu go, right, this is how we're going to progress this? How would Bectu give weight to a campaign in that way?
Okay, so I guess that's a really important question, actually, because it's about delivering results, and that is what we're all about. I'm going to go back to a little bit about what we talked about earlier, but it would be about kind of making sure we have a good number of members, to be perfectly honest with you, because that is where we get our credibility from. So, you know, for example, if we're going to say we want to introduce a rate card, or let's go for the HR charter, you know, in reality, you guys are employed by indies, which are small companies, and who are they all a member of? PACT. So we have working relationships with PACT. We've had successes with those guys before, particularly in Unscripted. Paddy might be able to talk about a little bit about, we have a major motion picture agreement with them. We have an agreement with them about high-end TV drama and how people should be employed when they're working on those types of productions. So the reason that PACT was able to we were able to go to PACT and say, you must take us seriously on these particular issues, was because we had the members to say to them that, you know, this is a large group of people that are interested in this area. So, I mean, that is the fundamental working, the fundamental conditions that we need to kind of work from. Then from there, as I said, we have the existing relationship with PACT. We've done negotiations of this kind before, not for Unscripted, but in other areas, and we have experience, and we could draw parallels from that experience to achieve the change. As well as those behind the scenes conversations, there would also, of course, be a communication strategy, which would include kind of press work, social media campaigning, and all those tools would be given to the members that if they wanted to take part and shared that information through whatever channels they think is relevant to them, of course they would be encouraged to do that. You know, also Philippa as well would be kind of having these conversations wherever she's kind of talking to government or kind of policy advisors, and it would be a multi-pronged campaign. But it would all have to be on the basis that we have the right number of members to be taken seriously. Because once again, if we turn around and we say, oh, we've only got 500 people, and the Office for National Statistics shows that there's 30,000 people working in the industry, it leaves us in quite a difficult position, because people are like, then, well, you're not representative of the workforce. And we can say, yeah, we might have the biggest number of the largest group of members compared to other unions, but if you look at the core stats, you know, that's quite a difficult thing for us to overcome.
So you need that. So basically, Bectu needs a massive group, well, a large group, percentage of the freelance population in order to have that weight to push through a campaign. Really, really good to know. So if I'm talking to, you know, my mate who is a freelancer, and I say, okay, I'm thinking about joining Bectu, and they say, well, why? Give us, like, on the really basic kind of what benefits, and it can be, you know, what benefits are there of joining the union, and it can be like the kind of really basic package to start with. I don't, Paddy, maybe you want to take it.
I'll take that question, yeah. Okay, so as a union, our commitment and our focus is obviously on structural change. So we want to change the working practices of employers for the betterment of our members. That's our main focus. But there are other benefits to union membership which are worth it without those things. So I think the best benefit that all of our members get access to is expert advice on anything related to their employment. So as I mentioned in the little introduction, a big part of my job is spent on casework every day. So I have people ringing me up and say, I'm concerned about this contract that I've been offered. It doesn't seem right. Or I'm concerned that my colleagues are being bullied and I'm not really sure what to do. I'm not sure how to approach the situation. Even the last week or so, I've had people who have joined very, very recently in Unscripted ring me up to say, I've been asked to sign a contractual variation in light of COVID, which I'm really not happy about. Can you help? These are things we can intervene on. We can give confidential, free advice. It's all anonymous. No one knows you're in the union unless you want to tell them. You know, we're not going to go tell your employer anything like that. But what we can do, I think more crucially, what we can do is go to the employer on your behalf anonymously if you want. It's entirely up to you, and intervene to change things. I mean, Bally's right. The first thing that employers ask if we want to change big structural things is, how many members are you representing in this area? So when the coronavirus job retention scheme kicked off, I mean, it's a voluntary scheme. Employers don't have to, the furlough scheme is voluntary. Employers don't have to enter into it. So a lot of what we were doing was ringing production companies saying, can you please furlough our crew? And they say, well, how many people do you represent? And we'll say, quite a lot. And they'll go, okay, we'll furlough them. Because it's an easier life for them to appease the union, because by virtue of that, they're appeasing the production as a whole, and they're ensuring that their production is good and it continues to be prosperous. So yeah, high density is important, but on a one-to-one basis, you're still entitled to loads of perks. We have a money's owed service, so for when people aren't paying your invoices, we can chase them up on your behalf. We have remarkable success with that. Legal advice in other areas as well. There's discounts, public liability insurance, all sorts. But ultimately, it's the structural change we're after, and that only comes from a high density of members engaging with the union. I think is the key part. Coming to us, talk to us, attending meetings, and trying to enforce change. I think.
When I was first starting in TV a long time ago, I had people actively telling me, don't join the union because you will be seen as a troublemaker and people won't employ you. I wanted to, so that, and I took that, I really, as a runner, I really thought, oh God, because you're so desperate for any kind of work. So if I join the union now, one, am I going to be asked to go on strike? Am I going to have to, I don't know, burn my bra outside Endemol or something? And two, am I going to be seen as a potential troublemaker by employers and not be given work?
In terms of the question about strike action, it's very unusual, and it's very unusual to go on strike generally, not just for Bectu, but across trade unions. So when a strike happens, it tends to be on the news because it's quite a radical thing to do, to say I refuse to work because my conditions are so bad.
Last resort, isn't it?
Absolute last resort. And it very rarely happens. I can't remember any industrial action that specifically happened in any of the branches that I've worked in since I've joined Bectu, or indeed when I worked for the National Education Union, any of the teachers that went on strike. So it's very unlikely to happen, and it only ever would happen if the members wanted it to happen. So there'd be a vote. We would never instruct anyone to do anything. It's always the members that make these decisions. So no, in a nutshell, it's extremely unlikely to happen. What was the second part of your question, Michelle?
Would I be seen as a troublemaker if people know that I'm a Bectu member, will employers see me as a troublemaker and not want to employ me?
I think the sector needs a reputation for being unionised, and I think that's only going to come with a high density of members. I think individuals, if they approach employers and ask for change, then potentially that could happen. But it's anonymous. Bectu membership is anonymous. You can be as involved or less involved as you like. You can run for committee. You can be active in campaigns. You can shout loud about it, or you can stay in the background and support it from afar. That's absolutely fine. It's entirely up to you. We know there's a risk involved for freelancers in putting your hand up and saying I am a union member, but that's why but that'll only change once it's become the new norm. It's certainly not that case in major motion film or TV drama, where we are strongly unionised. It's an extremely normal thing to talk about being in the union. We're always in like Pinewood. We're a welcome and constant feature of the landscape there. So the idea with once density grows within Unscripted, a similar thing would happen, and no one would feel like they're a troublemaker. It would just become a new normal.
Bally, did you want to hop in there?
Yeah, I did. Just quickly, just to kind of say that, I mentioned before the pre-COVID and the post-COVID world, and the post-COVID world actually means that the industry has to work together in a way that has never worked together before, I think, to kind of actually fight for its survival. That is what's going on right now. The country is in a really, really precarious state. Our economy is in quite a difficult situation. And I think, yes, okay, maybe in the past it might have been seen as, being a trade union, being a member of a trade union is something which is weird or not sure what's going on in that particular choice or the activity that's involved in that. But I think what Bectu has demonstrated in the last couple of months is that we are 100% mainstream. and we are in the conversations that need to be taking place, and we're crucial to those conversations. You know, on the scripted side of things, our National Secretary, Spencer MacDonald, he was invited as a group of just, you know, 5-6 people to kind of hash out the guidance about returning to work for that side of the industry. And, you know, like Paddy's saying, those guys, those producers, Warner Brothers, Netflix, those kind of guys, they don't have any problem with engaging with us, because we're not there to make trouble for the sake of it. We're there representing the interests of the crew who produce amazing content for these guys. So we're talking about well-being of people who deliver the stuff that they need. And, you know, we're very much approaching the conversations in that way, and we are looking to, as much as possible, to be constructive. That's always how we're going to go into the situation. And I think, you know, what we've seen with Unscripted is that Pact has this huge, it has a very, very high profile, and it needs it. The indies, they're SMEs, a lot of them, you know, they're operating in quite difficult, challenging circumstances. They need that representative body, but so do the freelancers. And that is Bectu. You know, we are the ones who are able to kind of do that work that Pact does. We see Pact in those conversations and having that profile, and we have that in the scripted side of things, and we should have that level of profile in Unscripted as well. I really think we're not that far away from kind of being able to do that, and now is the time in this post-COVID world that we're existing in.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that keeps coming up in the task force sort of conversations that freelancers are having, sort of a lot of talk about accountability when it comes to production companies and broadcasters and the way they treat freelancers, you know, unfair working practices, just poor working culture. Paddy, can you tell me a little bit about how Bectu can help protect freelancers who feel they've been treated unfairly? How does Bectu get involved, and can you maybe give me some examples?
Yeah, sure. I think for freelancers more than any sort of sector of or type of worker, I suppose, you're more at risk, aren't you? Because you're not working for necessarily one employer all the time. You might flip between different employers, different clients. So obviously you're more at risk of maltreatment, because a lot of employers will think, well, I don't have to work with them next week. It doesn't really matter how I treat them. So I think that's an issue. So, I mean, the different sorts of casework that I do in respect of individual members is, let me think of a good example. So, in the location branch that I deal with, I had a group of members come to me and say, we're all being bullied by this one individual and this one production. And it's really quite bad, and it's really, really, you know, and we're concerned that we can't raise it because we're quite junior members, we're quite junior staff, we're location marshals, and we don't know what to do. We don't know our rights. So I explained to them their rights, they shouldn't be dealing with the bullying. And I went to speak with the production on the behalf to sort it out, and it was sorted. So these are the kind of things we can intervene on. We know that the nature of the work is that you work in different areas, and it's sometimes hard to have that constant. Bectu can be that constant. You know, you don't have HR to go to, broadly speaking, in the creative sectors. No. So we can sort of be that shoulder. I mean, when the coronavirus thing kicked off, I suppose one good example would be is that we had a group of members come to us and say, we're not being furloughed, but we don't really understand why. The company, I won't say where the company is. The company's not furloughing us because of something that's happened with a third party, and we're a bit confused. So myself and some others, Philippa, Tony Lennon, who's our researcher, looked into this. We understood what the problem was. We took the problem to the production company. And then liaising with them and the third party, we were able to get £650,000 paid to people who were not going to receive a penny from the government because of issues that were outside of their remit. So that's the power that we can have. I mean, that's not something we publicise necessarily, because this is like, a lot of it's confidential, a lot of it's behind the scenes. But that's the power that being in a union can have. And again, the first questions that we get asked when we go speak to employees is, so how many people do you represent? And I was able to say in that situation, well, we've got 80 crew on this production. And they went, okay, well, we better do something about it then. That's the first thing it comes to.
I mean, that's fantastic to know. So let's talk about, so I'm going to go through all the questions that I can see pinging up on the side here. So you know, people listening to this have kind of gone, okay, this sounds like actually something that I want to be involved with. Practically talk me through the process of joining Bectu's Unscripted group. What do they have to put in as to what division they want to be in? Do they have a code? Because I think there's a special rate. How does it all work, Paddy?
Yeah, sure. Shall I take that one, Bally?
Yeah, go for it.
So it's fairly simple to join. It's an online form. What I'll do is I'll pop the link into the chat after I've answered this question. When you're joining, if you want to join on the £7.50 rate, which we've got dedicated for people who work on unscripted TV, all you've got to do is write unscripted TV holding into the branch option. The next page after that will say you're paying £10 a month, which is our normal rate, but it is £7.50. The membership department will change that at source. So don't think that you're going to be paying £10, because so long as you've written unscripted TV into the branch section, that'll be fine. And yeah, you can join up on that. And then, yeah, you'll join the unscripted TV holding branch. And then at some point, we're going to have a look at people in those branches and say, right, what is the best way to organise the people in this branch? Should we have a committee? Something like that. We need members first, and then we need to decide how we're going to do it. But yeah, that's how I see things progressing.
Great. So I'm looking through the questions here. Thank you everybody for your questions and for chat, and thank you to people. I think some Bectu people have been doing good work answering questions as we go along. So thanks very much for doing that job for me. I mean, I can see some things that we've already answered. So Stephanie makes the point that freelancers need to pay all kinds of subscriptions these days. And it's important to join Bectu, but it's quite expensive. So we've said, actually, as you say, there's a special rate, and that lasts for a year. Is that right? That rate's going to be a year from when you join. Is that correct, Paddy?
You just went a bit quiet there, Michelle. Could you say that last
sorry,
bit?
Darling. I said the special rate for joining the unscripted group, I think it's £7.50, and that would be for a year from when you join. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So it's £7.50 for 12 months, and then it'll go to 1% of your salary. So it's not a huge amount of money.
That's good to know. There's a couple here talking about how to Bectu work with contact and work with small indies that don't have lots of levels of management. Yeah, so how do you? I mean, I'm guessing that if they're a member of PAC, then you can reach them that way. But is there any other kind of way that you can work with the smaller indies?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right to say that PACT is obviously the main focus when we want to. So when we want to enforce like sort of structural change, when we want to get better overtime rates or better 7th-day continuous rates or something like that for our members, then PACT is the people to go to. But we know that individual circumstances for little indies often arise. Directly is the answer. We talk to them directly. I'm very often on the phone to people who own or run production companies to try and sort out issues. So yeah, directly, I suppose, is the answer.
Good stuff. A couple of things coming up here now about the rate card. I think, some people saying that the old rate card is very incorrect. I mean, I think this is something that we're working together with the current members of Bectu who are in factual and entertainment to kind of produce some sort of a more accurate rate card, not only in the amounts in the rates themselves, but also in the job roles that those rate cards represent. I don't know, Bally, do you want to sort of talk a little bit about how that's kind of coming together?
Yeah, I'm probably not the right person to actually answer how it's coming together. Paddy's much more hands-on, but I do recognise that in the past I saw that question pop up, and I do understand that it did show that Bectu doesn't really understand unscripted. But clearly this new push is about correcting that, and talking to people who actually have all of the knowledge about and getting the right information out there. But Paddy's best placed to say how it's going.
So yeah, I mean, the rate guidance issue probably deserves a presentation and a webinar in of itself. But just to quickly touch on it, we formed a group a couple of months back with the express intention of looking at getting a factual entertainment rate card, or rate guidance we're calling it, established. So this working group of members was set up. We surveyed people in the membership, as well as more broadly working in unscripted, and we got a load of data back. We got I think it was about 500 respondents, something like that. And so then what the working group did is they went through all of the data and they came back with a first draft of a rate card, or rate guidance, sorry, I should say. And that's where we are at the moment. So the next step is probably going to be putting out to the members and asking them, is this representative? Is this realistic? What changes would you like?
And also working with the task force, right? Because the task force has also we've been doing our own rate survey. I think we got 2,000 respondents. Thank you very much to anybody who did that. And so I think we kind of had our first chat with between everybody who's working on rates together last week. I think it was last week. Days fly.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So just basically trying to put together something that is representative of all the job roles in Unscripted, and to make sure that those that rate guidance is accurate, so that it can be really super useful and empowering. I think for freelancers, I think that's the key reason you need to put rate guidance together, is so that people feel empowered when it comes to asking for rates and what they're being paid for.
I think that's absolutely correct, Michelle. Yeah, we really want to bring the task forces in on this, because we know that you've got a massive group of people that trust you and know that you understand the industry. So yeah, we're really keen to work on you in terms of the rate guidance. I think that the key to the rate guidance is it allows people to know what the negotiating power is. You know, if I know that I can go up to this amount instead of this amount, then why shouldn't I be asking for it? Yeah. But it goes hand in hand with informing people of how to negotiate, because I think that is a problem with freelancers generally, not just necessarily Unscripted, but broadly. It's still a problem in major motion film and TV drama, is that you know, production will say work for X and you'll say thanks, but really you should be going in high and negotiating low, and that's something that I'm keen to sort of push. But yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just looking at the time. An hour has sped past, my dears. Final one. I think people quite often look at a union as almost a bit like insurance. Like, it's something you turn to when things go wrong. You know, it's sort of you know, I'm going to join Bectu because I've had this shit happen to me in my job. But you know, how important is it for people to join Bectu and to kind of become long-running members, and what kind of benefits are there of being a Bectu member even when times are relatively stable, which they're not now, but hopefully they will be soon.
Do you want to take that question, Bally, or shall I take that one?
It's up to you. I mean, I think both Paddy and I are going to answer in a similar way, to be honest with you. I mean, I think the thing is that to be a freelancer working in Unscripted, you have to be interested in what's going on in the industry, what your peers are up to, how things are going in other production companies, other types of productions. That's just part of the course. The networking side of things is just crucial to it. And being part of Bectu is another element of that, but actually it's quite a focused way of using that energy that you're already putting out there to kind of achieve change that's actually going to result in improving your working life. It doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. That is, you know, that's the truth of the matter. Nothing happens overnight. It takes concerted effort. It takes commitment. It would be stupid of me to be like, yeah, you join and in 3 months' time, everything's going to change. No, that is not what happens. But it is another outlet for you to kind of understand what's going on in the industry and also be an agent for change. And you can do that in, like Paddy said previously, you can do that just by literally being a member, or you can do that by being an active member. And, you know, there's lots of ways of kind of participating and being a Bectu member, but that active decision to join the union is saying that you are committed to the industry and committed to making the change that it needs for you to have longevity in your career, essentially.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that's really come through. I mean, I know I was saying to you earlier that I feel more engaged with our industry now during lockdown, ironically, than I have before. And I think it's because as freelancers, it's so common to feel isolated and to just be doing what you need to do to get the next job, and to kind of, but suddenly, you know, during this time, we've been able to sort of look out at the issues that affect your fellow workers. And I think this is something that, you know, now's the time where we can all kind of look at the bigger picture and say, okay, you know, maybe I joined the union not just because this certain specific issue is affecting me personally right now, but actually look out at what's happening to our fellow freelancers and fight for their causes as well as our own. On that note, I wanted to see how our poll turned out, and then I'm going to let you all go. But I'd be really interested to see what the results are of the poll. So I don't know if that can spring up. Aha. Okay, so what issue do you think Bectu and the task force need to tackle most urgently? I think somebody made the point that it's impossible to choose between all those issues because they're all really pertinent. But we can see here that 44% of you said it's the long hours. I think, and that's something that, we talk about in the task force a lot, that idea of your time not being your own, and not being in control of the amount of hours that you work, and how that affects your family life, your just your life in general, your health, your safety. So really interesting to see that was reflected in the poll. So thank you everybody who tackled that. Rate card came up next, HR charter, and then diversity and representation. So but all of these very kind of important points. So I think we've kind of had our marching orders, guys. we know what we need to focus on. So thank you very much. I think I'm almost going to bring us up to a close. Is there anything else that you would like to say that we've missed, or what I've missed, Paddy or Bally?
There's a few people that have asked how many members we've currently got in Unscripted, and a few others are asking how many people will we need to have a critical mass. What do you think, Paddy? Sorry.
It's hard to say. How long's a piece of string? So in terms of how many members we've got, scripted versus unscripted, it's really quite hard to say. I suspect we've got quite a lot already working in unscripted, but certainly not in necessarily like production management or research and things like that. Editorial, I don't think that's a section we've really tapped into. So I think further work is needed there.
And those people that are currently working in unscripted have the potential or the option to move into this new unscripted group. Is that correct?
That's one option we can certainly look at. Yeah, we do have. So say you're a cameraman and you work in unscripted, we currently have a camera branch for you. If you're a sound person and you work in unscripted, there's a group for you there. I think what's going to be key is those people who are currently working on scripted, who are in the union, making sure they're involved in some capacity in what we're doing. So whether that's sort of like a cross-divisional committee, which includes this new branch, I'm not sure. But as I keep going back to, it's going to be up to you guys as the members. You're in control when it comes to what we do in this situation.
And when it comes to what kind of numbers do we need to actually affect change? What are we talking about? Are we talking about hundreds, thousands? How many members do we need to really kind of make people sit up and listen?
I think that's something we need to look at. To be honest, I think what we need to do is calculate how many people are in the industry, and then look at it that way. To be honest, but certainly an awful lot more than we've got now in order to get us to the table and to get people like Pat to take us seriously. It's a bit like saying how long's a piece of string. It's sort of hard to calculate, and it will take sustained effort, as Bally was referring to before. I'm conscious that there's a few questions that we haven't had time to answer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my email address into the chat function. So if anyone's got any questions, I'll put my mobile there as well if anyone wants to ring me.
A quick one from Jason. Will this include entertainment, not just factual entertainment? Absolutely. I think at the beginning we talked about what does unscripted actually mean, and it's basically anything without a script, a drama script, or anything without an actor, sorry. So it would be factual, entertainment, fact-ent, documentary, current affairs, sports, reality. So hopefully that should cover all those wild genres.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just factual entertainment. We're keen to make this as all-encompassing as we possibly can. So yeah, anyone who works in any unscripted, and there might be some people who work in scripted or work in both. We're a home for all of you. Anyone working in the creative sectors, that's how we view ourselves, and that's what we're keen to reinforce in this meeting today. Yeah.
Right. Well, we're really, as a task force, we're really excited about working with Bectu. I think it's let's continue this conversation, and we will continue to kind of bring Bectu's thoughts to the task force and vice versa. And hopefully, if our task force members feel that this is something that's valuable and that, they really want to be involved with, I would encourage them to join us and give it let's give it the best chance it can get, really, I suppose. Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and thank you very much, Paddy and Bally, for letting me grill you. This will be recorded, and then we'll be able to put the link up on the Bectu page, and then I think we'll obviously share it to our task force page, so that any of your friends or colleagues who you feel would be interested, please do share amongst yourselves. That'd be great. I think that's it. Is it, Paddy?
Yeah, thanks very much, Michelle. Thanks for agreeing to arrange this today. It's been really useful, I think.
Absolute pleasure.
All right, thanks then.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.